everyone, it's Shari Carroll for SimonsSaysStamp.com, and I have an adorable card using the Studio Katia Mermaid for each other, and I've created a shaker card. To start off, I've cut a couple pieces of Nina White cardstock, but the first one I'm using the shell shaker die, and I've cut my window. It also creates a really fun little dotted line around the shell. I'll also be using the center pieces, and I'll be coloring these and setting them inside the shaker card. But first I want to add a little bit of adhesive to the back side, and I'll put them right onto my work surface so I can color them with some ink. I'm using the Simon Says Stamp Rosy Cheeks ink and an ink blending tool, and I'm coloring the shell pieces. And I have them a little bit darker at the bottom. I have my second piece of cardstock sitting underneath the window, and I've put the pieces to the shell die cut back into the window, and I'm using it as a guide to help me to put these pieces back together. So I'm using a little bit of Simon Says Stamp glue on each of the pieces, and when I put it down, it glues them to the second page. I'm using the Studio Katia Brush Strokes Wave Stencil, and I'm using the same Rosy Cheeks ink, and I'm just adding just a really light touch to create a nice little pattern on the front panel of the card. And when I'm done, I have a very faint color that'll match the inside shell. To start the shaker card process, I have a piece of acetate that I've cut just a little bit larger than the shell, and I'll be adding adhesive all the way around the window and also in the area where the acetate will sit. Once I have my adhesive down, I'll press my acetate in place, and I'll make sure it measures up with the inside panel. I've added 2 layers of foam tape to the back of the front panel, so it'll be deep enough so that the sequins can still shake around. Before I pull any of the backing off, I'm using my powder tool, and I'll go around the sides of that adhesive to make sure there's no sticky areas. The sequins that I'm using are the Studio Katia April crystals, which are faceted gems. They are clear and also holographic. I'll sprinkle these in and then adjust them so that they sit upright. The second set of sequins I'm using are the Shimmering Ice Fusion sequins, also from Studio Katia. With my sequins in place, I'll remove 2 of the strips of the foam tape, and now I can line up my backing piece so that it lines up with the front piece. Next, I'll remove the extra backing to the rest of the foam tape. For my designs for the outside, I have stamped the mermaid and some of the shells and her staff. I'll be coloring these with some Copic markers, and I've sped this up. I have all my Copic markers listed in the supplies below, but I am using the E51 for her skin tone, and then I'll go back in and add some cheeks. For her hair, I like a little bit of a red look, so I'm using some warm browns, yellows, and light oranges. I have die cut all my pieces. I've also stamped a message, and I'll add this to the bottom of the shell. First, I want to glue on the outline of the shell piece just to the acetate, and I'll be using Simon Says Stamp craft glue because it has such a nice fine tip, and it's a permanent glue to glue to the acetate. And once I have that covered with glue, I can set that right onto the acetate, making sure that I have a little bit of a gap all the way around the shell. I'm placing my message strip just below the shell, and to make sure that I have everything squared up, I'll be using my T-square. And just make sure that that's lined up before I press down the foam tape. I've added my mermaid onto my message strip, and right now I'm adding a little bit of glue to her staff, and I'll tuck the bottom portion just under her tail. I'll add a couple of the shells on each side of the greeting to balance everything off. I have also added a few of the crystals to the outside of the shell to give it a little sparkle and shine. I hope I've given you some inspiration in using the Mermaid for Each Other stamp and die set, and also the Shell Shaker die from Studio Katia. Be sure to check out the Simon Says Stamp blog for more inspiration, and as always, thanks so much for watching.